Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like and comment on my video and consider subscribing to my channel. Okay, so let's get back into the Tower of God where we last stopped. And this time we're in the progress of the Slayer nominee competition. So in the Slayer nominee competition, a lot of things have started to go down already. From the first part, as I said, they've already started to move around on the train, and it's White versus Balm. So the next thing, which obviously happens in this entire crazy madness on board the train, is Balm ends up meeting the God of Guardians after passing the test to enter the next floor, and he ends up making his journey through finding a warp device that takes him to fight the Guardian, and the Guardian he ends up running into is the God of Guardians. Now, the thing about the God of Guardians is he is one of the original constructs on the train. Now, something to note about the workshop at this point. They can create artificial and actual life. And the guardians on this train are a form of creation of life that they have made. The guardians are not machine, but they are life. So they created all these guardians. So they are all living beings created by the workshop. And they've also left a ton of rewards on board the train, and they must probably always fill up the rewards every once in a while to make sure that there's new things for the regulars to get off the train. Now, on the train, the God of Guardians was made to train the original 13 warriors on what they needed to know to progress to the next stage of being what they were. So, because they were irregulars and really powerful, they wanted to teach them how to use Shinsu better, how to use their attributes and skills to their advantage, and what it means to be an irregular. At this point, he ends up taking Balm through the first part of training to unlock his full potential as an irregular, and that is finding one's true self. Now, for anybody who knows this is a trope used in a lot of comics. Finding your true self means defeating your truest enemy within you, being able to overcome all of the temptation, and being able to overcome the falsehoods of yourself. And Balm ends up doing this. It takes him almost 3 weeks to take on this training. But at the end of it, it really does have a massive effect on how much of power he has. You'll find out about that just a little bit later when the actual Slayer nominee competition kicks off. In this time, White goes looking for his clones, his copies, his siblings. And as we said, Vincent is with Wagner, and they manage to escape because the train's routes change all on their own. And one of them changed to seal off the route that White could use to get to them. At this point, they manage to escape through another route, take the test, continue on, and they form their own team to fight White in the competition that's going to be held at the end of the month. So their team ends up running into Daniel in between this entire situation, and he says that he'll help Vincent become the center if Vincent makes the same promise that White made. If he helps them resurrect, then they have to revive Ruina. And they're like, yeah, fine, right, we'll do that there. So what are you offering us? And he gives them the position of David. Now, David ends up getting put into the White Heavenly Mirror, and he ends up being used by um, Wagner. So it's a complicated story. I'll explain it as we go through to the next section. Okay, so the next thing which happens is White finds another one of his sibling which is named Anna. So she's one of the five that make up White, and he ends up finding the sibling. The last sibling who is missing is Albelda. Now, Albelda is a very weird situation. Her soul was mixed with all the souls that had been slaughtered by White, almost 1 billion souls. And they grouped together and they became their own entity with her at the center. So it is Albalda, but she's a fusion of multiple different souls to make a new personality altogether. So she becomes the last part of the core to make up White, but she has the power of an advanced ranker, maybe a high ranker. I'm not exactly sure how you could put it, but she's unbelievably powerful compared to White. So, nonetheless, everybody is in their corners. They start heading towards their sections. Pedro could not stop Albalda, by the way. there's nothing he could do to put Albelda in line and force Albelda to join with White. He couldn't do a thing to do that. All he had to do was follow the competition. So he ends up making a little bit of an agreement that she can interfere in the last event, but nothing else. So Baum ends up doing all this training. Everybody ends up making it in for the Slayer nominee competition. And the Slayer nominee competition is actually called the Dada Show. It's one of the things which the 10 great families did once they had completed their climb of the tower to divide the tower amongst themselves, who rules each floor. Okay, at this point, there's a few things to note before we continue up the tower any further with the Hell Train. The Dana show is actually a representation of what the 10 great families did to divide who is in charge of which sections of the tower. And Jad is the king of the entire tower. But the 10 great families are a different story. They sub rulers under him across whatever there is in the tower. And all of them had to go through this process to actually earn what they have in the tower. So this program wasn't meant to be all about fighting with power. It has challenges that which will trick you when it comes to intelligence, using some strength and balancing it all out together with strategy. So the next thing which happens is White and ends up pulling together his team, and they play the first round of the Dada show. Now, I'm hoping that I can complete this entire nominee competition in the single video. So the first round of the Dada show is quite easy to handle. Everybody is given a coin called Dada, and each person has been given a different amount. Some have gotten 2, some have gotten 10, but the two teams, which are Bam and Wagnans, are counted as one team. They receive the exact same amount of Dada, and White has his own amount of dollar as well that's equal to their combined dollar. So they have the same thing. But White's team is much smaller than the other two teams. They have way more in terms of numbers. But nonetheless, the first game is played. The first game is called the Sweet Fish Hunt. So the sweet fish or the sweat fish, whatever you want to call it, is the first thing that they end up running after. Now it is spelled sweet fish. Someone did say that it's a sweat fish and not a sweet fish. It was a spelling error. I'm not 100% sure on that, to be honest. So I'm just going to go with sweet fish. So nonetheless, the sweet fish is the first competition. Rachel, Kun, Bullseye Elliott, and Barrow are the ones selected to take part in this competition because they each receive $10 apiece. And the winning team receives $15 and they receive an advantage going into the next game. So in this game, Barrow takes on Bullseye Elliott and the two of them fight. She uses her ignition weapon, which is a sugar charged weapon, which gives her more power. Kun faces off against Rachel and he really insults Rachel bad. So he tells Rachel that he'll even give her a chance to catch this fish because he knows that she can't catch the fish. Rachel, being cocky and thinking that she is caught onto something, decides to go at the fish just like that normal. At that moment, it's revealed that the sweet fish is actually compressing itself and it decompresses completely and almost kills Rachel. Kun immediately uses his lighthouse and catches the sweet fish, and he says that he hopes to fight her again later in the next match. At this point, White says he sees how pathetic Rachel is, doesn't want to see her ever again. She better stay out of his way. And it's expected. She is really pathetic and weak, and now he's seen how bad she really is. So that is the end of the game. Barrow fails to even take down Bullseye Elliott, doesn't even have to unleash any of his power, but he struggles quite a bit to actually keep up with her in that fight. Nonetheless, he's feeling like he could actually regret killing that member Tucci of their team because they are quite powerful as a bunch. With Punskal, Iraday, and her put together, they might actually have a chance against him. So, nonetheless, the next part of this whole fight is the pipe walk or getting the sweatfish to the core. So the next game starts, and in this game, everybody is separated into mini teams. three or two-man teams, and they have to move the sweatfish to the core. So the team who won the sweatfish in the last round has the advantage with the sorry, not sweatfish, with the sweetfish has the advantage in this round. They have to make it to the core with the sweetfish in order to win the round. So Kun, being the one who's holding it, has the most amount of Dala. And this game works as follows. When they're moving through pipes, they can lock a pipe. They can also open a door which has been locked for double the Dala that was used to seal it. So if they're running away from a team and they use $1 to seal it, it'll cost their team $2 to open it. And if they keep doing this here for a sequence, say for example, the team has $25 uh, and they have 125, they can do it um, 13 times and they'll be able to get rid of the enemy because the enemy won't be able to follow them past the 13th door. And they'll only lose 13 while that team will lose $24. That's the reason why they are at an advantage. But they also know that the longer they take to leave the pipes, the worse it gets because people get killed and Dala moves up for each of the teams. So nonetheless, the first thing which happens is Bullseye Elliot and Angel end up running into Iwa, Barrow, and their chicken friend. I don't know what's his name. But nonetheless, they have a big fight, and Iwa ends up losing a cool when Angel kills the chicken guy, and Iwa ends up roasting Rachel really, really badly. At the same time, Bullseye Elliot ends up taking on a fight against one of the members of AKA Williams' team, Montare. Um, Hanwoo, who is the member of Boro's team, and Bam. So uh, Muntari says Bam should relax a little bit. He has to fight White soon, and they need him to keep his strength up. He'll fight this guy and he'll win. And Bullseye Elliot ends up slitting him in two, and then Bam ends up using his power against Bullseye Elliot and beating him up like it's nothing, winning that fight. Now, there's a whole lot of other things that are happening on the back of this entire situation, but that is for the final part of this entire story of the Slayer nominee competition. So, the next thing which happens is Rachel and Yura end up cornering uh, Kun, and they realize if they keep using Emily, they're the only people who can actually communicate uh, in this entire game because their signals aren't being cut off. And the next thing which happens is, wait, how do I explain it properly? Um, okay, so Rachel and Yura spot Kun, Harwin, and the swordsman walking together down a pipeline, and they decide they're going to wait for them to reach a junction where on the other side is Casino, and his strong point being that he's going to be their muscle. He also has the traveler with him, so they're going to catch these three and they're going to pincer them together and force them to fight. All they have to do is kill the sweet fish to win the game. Whew, okay, so yeah, that's what's the idea. Now on the way there, Rak, Punskul Iriday, and who was the other member of the team who joins them? I think it's just Rak and Punskul Iriday, who they're just calling a corpse for question marks for comedy relief, ends up being the ones who end up showing up. So it's 5 versus 4. They obviously have the advantage and everything is there. So Kun basically says, how about we play a game? Winner gets all the other teams Dala, and nobody has to really fight because we have the edge right now with who we have. The Panskul took the Traveler, which is Casino's weakness, and Yura and Rachel put together can't take on Kun and Rak. So we already know that that's it. Everybody is at checkmate on Rachel's team. So they end up playing a game, and Kun is just doing this here to actually insult Rachel a little bit more. So he says, how about we play a coin flip because that's the only thing that's fair. I can't ask you to fight me hand to hand, you're too weak. I can't ask you to play a game of wits, you're too stupid next to me. So yeah, why don't we just play a coin toss? Let it be something that is totally fair. So Rachel originally agrees, and then Kun is cheating in the first round, and he wins by cheating. At this point, Rachel starts complaining that it's not fair. He is using his lighthouse to cheat, and it's his dollar, so he could have rigged it. So he says, "Fine, right, we'll do a rerun. You can take round two." She tosses and she gets a win, which is a shock because that's very unlikely. At this point, it's like, okay, so I won this one, yeah. And he's like, yeah, but now it's not fair anymore because we won 1-1, and he shows that this thing was fair from the start. So why don't we play a third round? And to make sure that nobody can be said that they were cheating, we let the alligator throw the coin. So Rak is like, why would they let me? I'm on his team. It's not fair. And then Rachel just agrees to it because obviously Rak is too stupid to pull anything sneaky. And Kun is actually so confident that luck would never favor Rachel twice, that he's willing to risk losing even when he has the edge. So they toss the coin and Kun wins. But to make things worse, he leaves one coin with Yura, one coin with Rachel, and they are the only ones who are going to continue on from this team to go on to the last section. Remember, Angel is knocked out, Bullseye Elliot is knocked out, Casino is knocked out, and Traveler is knocked out. So 4 out of the 7 man team are gone. That leaves Daniel, Rachel, Rachel, Yura. Those are the remaining three who are around, and White, of course, as the big bad. Now, White's team runs into a team who he really wanted to punish. He runs into Sachi, Borrow, and AKA. And he decides that he's going to let Anna dissolve them into to soul juice, and he is going to just sit around and fight. Now, while they busy fighting on that side, another plan was hatched by Wagner that him, Vincent, and David would go and take out White. And they end up trying to do it. And then in the middle of all of this, we find out that White is the only one who can actually be the core of Joaquin is the only one who can be the core of White. And he ends up absorbing Anna, Vincent, and David at the same time, making him 4 souls stronger than he was. At the same time, Baum's team makes a shortcut by cutting a pipe because the rules weren't such that they weren't allowed to damage pipes. So he damages the pipe, uses it, and bends it to make a shortcut across the core. And that allows him to end up running into the rest of the team. And he ends up running into White, and they end up fighting. Now, White has already absorbed his siblings, and at this point, everybody basically finds out that White was once a ranker, which makes this absolutely unfair, and it's almost impossible for him to be here. But this is some kind of miracle within the tower that a person could divide his soul and become a regular again. So anyway, the fight continues at this point, and everything goes down. We end up with the final showdown between Baum and White. And this is what happens. Because Kun's team won against Rachel, they left the core. And once they left the core, they won. And since they won, there's nobody to fight them anymore. So everything is in Baum's favor. Baum ends up fighting White, and he almost loses because he tries to pull out the soul of Vincent from Joaquin, but he ends up failing. And they end up going to the last round of the fight. And the last round is quite simple. It's called the hostage situation. So each time a hostage is dropped down this spiral towards a burning solution at the bottom, if the hostage hits the solution, they die instantly, which makes this here kind of a big time problem for Baum. Baum will not allow anyone to die. And the second thing is the person who has the most amount of dollar left in the end wins. So it's actually been made just for White to win. But White feels a little bit insulted after a little bit of competition. The first one to go down is Prince. Baum pays a heavy price to save Prince. Then he ends up saving Angel from White's team. And moving on from that, the next thing which happens is he ends up saving Missing. Then he ends up saving Bullseye Elliot. No. In the middle of. Yeah, he saves Bullseye Elliot. At this point, he's totally finished. He's almost out of power because he fought White on his last descent down. And when he was at the bottom, White's clone drops to him and stabs him through the heart to give him the power of the souls that she has. Now, she chose to intervene on Balm's side because of the way in which he was fighting. He was fighting not to lose himself, even though he had greater power. And he needed even greater power, which he could get by simply sacrificing one or two people, but he chose to be a better person. So the clone decided to side with White, not with White, sorry, with Balm, and give him the power of the souls. At this point, Balm gets a major boost in power. He ends up fighting with White on the last trip down to save Miseng, and he ends up beating White quite easily, saving Miseng, and that is the end of this competition. Now, this video has gone on for a bit too long, so I'll catch you all in the next one, where we will be catching up with the side events of this entire situation and how White's defeat makes things turn out at this point, and also lead up to everything that's being hidden in this particular little mini arc. So get ready for the finale. It will be in the next one. Catch you all then. Have a good day.